So, good morning, everybody. Hope you had a good night's sleep. Probably not. Who slept enough? Good party?
It's never enough.
Huh?
It's never enough.
It's never enough. Enough party time, you mean? It's never enough party time. Okay, good. I mean, yesterday we heard about like what is important for a good business model, and now it's all up to how you build a good business model. But first of all, I would like to let you work again, because I think it's not up to the lecturer to only work. So we do a case study, and you have to find solution, because I think it's very important to learn from others what they have done before, because particularly from other industries. And I think we should not only talk about startups in this innovation week, we should also talk about how you can have innovation in large corporations or even small ones, because it's a good starting platform actually, not to start immediately your own career in a startup, but wait for, let's say, 2-3 years and learn more about your customers and things like this. And then use that as a platform to go further, because there you have already learned some customers and you think, well, great, we can do something more with the customers. So I've taken a huge company, it's called Bosch. Probably everybody knows the company. And we go for a small field. And you have heard yesterday already, I love power tools. We had yesterday somebody who's at Metabo and Black & Decker and Hilti, they're all competitors to Bosch. And we have to go back a little bit, 20 years ago. It was a heaven. This market was heaven. It was very, very simple market. You knew your competitors. They were actually all very close to Stuttgart. And it was perfect. The customers just loved the product. And the customer you see on the right side, it's man. Man love power tools. And the bigger, the better. That's always man. Marketing for man is very simple. You have to address certain deep idiosyncrasies in their brain. So you knew your competitors. They were all established brands. And the customers were well known, were man. And they spent quite a lot actually on home decoration. It's a typical Northern European thing, home decoration, because we think it's nice to do something by yourself as a hobby. While, for example, you don't have to sell power tools, for example, to Asia. Any idea why power tools don't work in Asia? Any idea? You have to learn a little bit more to think like customers. Why do you think Asians don't like power tools or do it yourself that much? Any idea? I mean, any idea is better than no idea. So here with the red jacket. Any idea why the Asian market for power tools is not very good?
Can you explain power tool?
Oh, power tool is a drilling, like a drilling machine or wireless screwdriver. Everything we call it do-it-yourself. It's like in America, it's Home Depot, stuff like this.
Because they don't have space in the houses to store.
Might be a reason, yes.
Social attitude.
Yeah, why do you think it's social attitude?
Can be considered as devaluating themselves.
Yes, exactly. Because we take pride, the richer we get, we take pride to do something again with our hands. In Asia, the richer they get, they hire somebody to do the dirty work. Well, we think it's great to go over the weekend to our summer house and become like a part-time farmer. This is not so far happening in Asia. And this is interesting when you start markets. You have to look quite often at the social demographics and the attitude of the people. What's your background? Where are you from? Where are you from? Geographically?
Oh, France.
France, okay.
But living also in Egypt. I guess in Egypt it's do the same.
Okay, that's right, exactly. So, any question about the market? It's power tools, it's drilling machines, stuff your father has in the cellar probably, or you have it from probably somebody gave it as a gift to you. Anybody who has a drilling machine here? No. Oh, excellent, excellent. And then suddenly the market changed dramatically. In the end of the 1990s, the Chinese came along, but not as customers, but as producers. And suddenly, you had 200 more brands on the market. You could not actually call them brands, they were just competitors. And Bosch stopped counting them, because usually you do a competitor analysis, and then you try to see who's your competitor. It was impossible to do competitor analysis because there were so many competitors in China. I mean, 200, and then they stopped counting. And it was interesting, they did not build up brands, they just pushed it into the market via trade brands, meaning any large supermarket chain had their own brands, like Carrefour or any other big chain. And at the same time, so you have new competitors, then the market stagnated as well. So people spend less on do-it-yourself equipment. And if you look at the market figure, it was very simple. The red line is all about the sales. So sales went down. The sales in units still went up a little bit because they became cheaper. So the unit price of, on average, changed from 88 euro to 52 euro. That's pretty bad. I mean, you sell more devices, but they become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And what happened is that the market share from the beginning of the 90s to the first years of the new millennium, from the established brands went down from around 95% to 67%. So they lost a third of the market to the low-end brands or cheap brands. So it's very important to understand, I mean, first of all, the market is stagnating, more competitors, you lose market share, and the discounters really win. So the discounters are the winners in the market game. And unfortunately, Bosch was losing money. And if Bosch doesn't accept anything in their firm, it's very much losing money. You can be not the growth champion, but one thing they don't like is losing money. So it was a big thunderstorm coming up to you. And you're at the board, and we make up 8 teams, and only 2 will present their ideas. It's a very simple task. You have to find some measurements, however you will present them, how you want to act in this market. Because it's all about how can you defend your market share and become profitable again. So it's not about in startups, it's classical innovation management or management. Because it's important because to distinguish. It's not about new things in this case, it's more or less. You have a market already and you have to defend your market leadership and improve profitability. I come along and give you more information if you need more, but just come up in, like, let's say 15 to 20 minutes with some ideas what you would do in this market. And make a short presentation out of it. I don't mind how you will present it. You can have it on your iPad, you can have it on a piece of paper. I don't mind how you present the idea. It's all about how do you want to improve profitability and defend your market share. The only thing you need actually is this, your head, because this is the biggest and probably most creative working tool God gave us. Actually, we heard yesterday it's not God. It is biophysics who gave us this brain. So it's up to you. Develop some ideas about market, leadership, how do you want to defend your market share, and improve profitability. And think about it's a European market. We're not talking about the American market, it's European market, and there's unfortunately no way to go to Asia because, as you said, on social demographic reasons, it's pretty difficult to go to the market. It's up to you, around 15 to 20 minutes, just develop some ideas, and 2 groups, I won't say in the beginning who will present the ideas. Okay, the floor is yours. And that is the task.
Well, as we understood the situation for Bosch in the market was that they have a very well-known brand for the professional market, and they were selling at a high price. So the home people they were using the drilling machine occasionally. They maybe they know the brand, but they don't want to spend so much money in buying Bosch. So we have thought that the situation can be changed by taking advantage of the brand and the quality tool, but in some way achieving the customers with lower price. So the key thing is how Bosch can deliver the product to the customer with low price. This is the key. The situation is we make this kind of price and value for the customer. Now, if this is where the competitors are situated, maybe Bosch is considered now for the customers as high value and high price. So to maintain the value perceived by the customer, but reducing the price.
Okay, how do you want to achieve this?
Situated Bosch from here, the actual situation, to a new situation more competitive. So maybe there are several ways of achieving this new strategy for Bosch. We have thought one is first making a new product line. Because as we understood, much were more focused on the professional market segment with very robust, high quality tools optimized for lasting all life. So for that reason, we use good materials, good factories. So one way is new simplified design. With less components, with different materials, maybe not so good. Maybe outsourcing some components, not manufacturing all the components in the European factory, and maybe some non-critical components can be brought from China or whatever other low-cost countries. So the other measure in the would be outsource non-critical component. So with this kind of measures, focus on a new design of the product and new ways of manufacturing them, we think it is possible to reduce the price.
Okay.
And then, doing also a marketing campaign to communicate the customer this change. So they notice that there is a new product line, focus on them, maintaining the good quality of Bosch with less price. And then
Yeah, thank you very much. Any questions from the others? Okay, thank you. You want to present next? You go for the computer, or you? How do you want to present? Good. We don't have paper. You have to wipe out.
Okay. So we can erase it.
Yes, please. Even it's a very good presentation.
what Bosch can do and what Asian companies can't do. The first thing was brand. Bosch has brand, Asian companies don't have brand. And of course niche market. First of this could be like professional tools for professionals and everyday use. So you deliver the value, you say through this brand that we have higher value, so customers is willing to pay more. And the second was
to find a new niche market where we can sell our products. So we thought about some new customers. You have seen the picture was a man with a drilling machine, and maybe you can imagine that a woman will use such tools, and maybe we can design tools for women that are using these tools at home for every part of the life, creativity or something like that. And where we can design tools that are less heavy or much smaller, something like that.
like user-friendly tools. And of course, like these big construction companies, they are they can they value this quality and this durability. And the Bosch is the only one who can deliver this one for them. And of course, they won't purchase the Asian products. This one.
Okay.
So basically, niche market like females and professionals too for everyday use, and strong brand.
Okay. Thank you very much. Who wants to be next? I think I liked it because it's 2 minutes or less. That's exactly what we need. Then we can have more. You want to go first and then you go last?
So if you think about the defending leadership of Bosch.
Yes, we thought of a couple of ideas. We thought that as Bosch has many competitors now in the market, they need to differentiate.
You present to the team.
Yes, they need to differentiate from the Chinese low-cost players. So they need to, in their marketing and in their quality, they need to be sort of, the client needs to understand why they should buy Bosch, not Chinese product. Then one other idea was they should have low cost. They should introduce a low cost brand to compete with the low priced products. So that they could compete also with price-wise and not to lose their market share.
Also, we're thinking one of the reasons why Bosch could be working better in the United States and in Europe is this sort of do-it-yourself mentality. So we thought one of the approaches could be new marketing, promote do-it-yourself, and Bosch tools for the real man.
Of course, they need to innovate. I mean, that if you take Samsung or other quite good companies, they innovate all the time. So Bosch would produce new materials, use them, I don't know, for example, promote such things like our drill is done using aerospace technologies and so on. So people will think that, okay, this is something different compared to this Chinese stuff.
And one other thing was that to sell also together with this sort of product with value-added services, whatsoever, 24/7 backup if needed, so that what the other competitors cannot basically provide in the market, so that the client understands that with using these Bosch tools, it's quality. When they have a problem, they know where to turn and so on.
Also, we're thinking how to raise their revenue. And we're thinking about Bosch accessories. For instance, creating a new standard that for Bosch drilling tools, we would be selling accessories like special Bosch drills, or how's it called? Yeah, drills that would fit only the Bosch devices, both quality and they would have to buy from us.
And if we think further, let's say we can integrate in this drilling chip a microchip. So there is a drilling chip with microchip, and there is a drill, for example. So you buy this drill, a very good drill, for example, 60 euros, the same price as Chinese have. But you have like limited edition, so you can only, for example, drill and plywood or just wood. So if you want to upgrade it, so you go to the internet, you pay, I don't know, 50 euros, and you can drill metal with it.
For another 2 hours, for instance.
Yeah, or for the next month.
Mhm.
So the same business model as
Pay as you go.
as Apple has. So you can just buy additional things and additional services to use inside the drill. So there is a small chip in the drill and chip in the accessory to match. So if you have space, so you can use that. Or for example, you can drill in one direction, but you can drill in another direction. So and so on.
Yeah, and the last idea was that when we talked about this low-cost brand, so that could be produced or part of production removed to China or other Asian country to be able to remain profitability, low-cost production in the in this low-cost brand.
And introducing it as an entirely new brand, not to harm the Bosch quality.
Yeah, definitely. It should be a different brand.
Thank you very much. Do you want to start already when he's still writing? Because I mean, you can already explain what he's writing.
Maybe it's quicker to say it. Basically, the assets what Bosch have is a very strong brand image made in German, with German recognition, even though it's maybe not made in Germany. So also to use this image of masculine men fixing stuff in the home, use it to advantage in sales and marketing campaigns. Also to emphasize the ergonomic features of Bosch products, which are generally far superior than Chinese copies. So also to focus on key market segments, because what the Chinese are trying to do is trying to appeal to the average homeowner who just wants to hang up a picture, use the drill one time per year, and it just goes back in the cupboard. We suggest to Bosch that our market segment is somebody different. Who is the market segment that we're chasing? It's the people who are using this drill 5 days a week. Who are those people? They're constructors, they're tradespeople, people who use tools for a living. That if the tool goes down tomorrow, it affects their livelihood. So, where are these people? First of all, the customer segment. It's very successful, as I saw Samsung doing product demonstrations in Helsinki airport. So we can propose that Bosch can do in-shop demonstrations in supermarkets that sell tools, for example. See, if somebody who's technically trained and who's able to give product demonstrations to customers in a shop. So see how it works, and if you like it, why don't you buy a Bosch? Also, for the average shopper to provide product promotions in the big metro shops, for example, in Germany, that this week Bosch tools are on special offer with a 5% discount. That attracts your average shopper who just wants to hang up the picture. Also, in the regions throughout, for example, Europe, especially in Germany, you have huge agricultural regions that are very far away from the main cities. Usually, despite the fact that they're remote, they generally have some sort of local hardware shops, to put a simple word on it. And these are geared to mostly people like farmers to buy agricultural tools and stuff like that. So rather than have to build up relations with the people who run these hardware shops, rather than stock a huge range of different manufacturers of power tools, just to be exclusive for Bosch and to have advantages, to have a better profit, a better price from Bosch and a better profit margin by being exclusive.
And also, we also added from here that Bosch could actually produce a new line of business, different products. Since, for example, the major reason why they are losing their market share is because of price, they could actually come up with a new price, totally different product, totally different. Because anybody that wants to buy something cheap doesn't really care about the name. You just go to the market and he pays. So get something totally different at a very reduced price. We also talked about they can reduce cost of production of the quality products. There are a lot of ways to reduce cost of production. R&D research, from my little experience, we're able to understand that at least cost of production, raw material contributes about 30 to 40% of your total cost. If it's possible to reduce some raw material inputs into the product, then it can also reduce the price of even the quality product we make. They also can reduce costs. Sorry, the first one is reduce cost of raw materials, and the second one is to reduce the cost of production. They could go automated, they could use other means. Like, we gave an example, like, we remember a time where Peugeot used to have cars made with metals and iron, and they were really very strong cars. But nowadays, they are made with fibers and polymers, such that you don't have to spend so much, and you don't have to use it for 50 years or 20 years or 30 years. They still, represent the same brand, but you could use it for 5, 6, 7 years, and you are still happy buying the car. So you can drop the cost of production. You can even go automated, reduce overhead costs, reduce people you are paying salaries and the rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From the other teams, any brilliant ideas the others have missed so far? You have any? Your team here? Or the Nuki team? What's about the Nuki team? Any special ideas?
Yes, afterwards, customer service tips and tricks.
Okay, like the helpline.
After the design of the very answer.
Okay, good. Any other idea?
Just one that we missed was renting or leasing.
Oh, okay, renting and leasing of that material.
The thing is, some kind of there's quite a big segment of the market saying people, okay, I would like to use the Bosch, but I just going to use it once a year, so it doesn't deserve it. So I probably go to buy a much cheaper devices Chinese and even throw it afterwards. It's not a problem. So saying it's a kind of way for Bosch to just not abandon this kind of segment of the market and saying, okay, just rent it for a few hours or for 2 or for a weekend, and you can have a Bosch tools
Yeah,
and use.
good idea.
Additionally, what have been already spoken, we also thought about building future market. So we think that there should be line for kids. Like
Okay, line for kids.
toys for kids, let's say so, and big line for women, for example.
How would you design for women?
For women,
Yeah, how would the products for women look like?
let's say we named big line because, for example, we have in the group girls who wanted to purchase, for example, pink hammer.
Okay, pink hammer.
And
No Swarovski. No Swarovski diamonds.
mostly for women, they should be like a little bit like
Should be lighter.
lighter.
Yeah.
Lighter woods and easy to use, let's say.
Yeah, thank you. I think one team did this. They called it the niche market. I think it was interesting how you presented, first of all. I liked the first presentation a lot because he tried to paint his argumentation in the moment he was talking about it. And I think it worked very well. I think take him as an example because sometimes a whiteboard is great, but you have to train this before what you write down. Because I mean, exactly in the last group, what happened was you had too much to write down. And this is not that important, but you could have written down there before we started, or you got organized, assets, action. And then it was said, okay, we got a brand, we got great quality, and the action we take is both. The whiteboard is excellent actually to present ideas, but you have to train it. This is very important also for you here. When you present your idea, train this with friends before. Not like, look at your computer. I know it's important. I mean, it was a very short time, but you pitch the first time, I think, on Friday, and then the week afterwards you pitch again. Train this. Talk about stories. You remember yesterday we had the first 2 pitches? Have a nice little use case. Okay, I just got pregnant. It doesn't happen to me, but then I have the feeling, okay, how can I have a little bit more of control if everything is going healthy? And we have the solution to it. I mean, try to explain or do your presentation more like in a storytelling way. And write down probably just the most important things on the whiteboard, because that's even better than a presentation up there, because then people look up there, not on you. So, and now coming back from the presentation style to the content, actually you were pretty much like what most people do. You do more of the same. We call it MOTS, more of the same. And it's very simple because, I mean, most of the people wanted to have like a low budget line. They wanted to go to countries where they produce cheaper brands. But then there was one group, which I found extremely interesting. There was a group here, which has absolutely no women in there, who said like, oh, let's go for niche markets. And exactly what you also said in the past. The first reaction for niche market in women is pink. But women are not that stupid, dear man. They're much more practical, particularly when it comes to tools. They want to have a job to be fulfilled. And this is drilling a hole, hanging up a picture. So make my life easier. And this is exactly what he said after the pink stuff. Sometimes the second thought is the better one. Yes, I mean, nobody of you imagined how drilling is today or was in the past. It's noisy, high vibration, dust, a lot of things. It's not the material actually which doesn't work, it's the process to get a hole in the wall is not very nice. And I think you had also some ideas in that field. So actually what Bosch did was, how about making a power tool which is much weaker than the last generation, but we make it very handy and nicely designed. For that, we charge a premium and market it to people who are not really into do-it-yourself. This is exactly your idea, a little bit overemphasized, because you break a lot of rules. Less power, because most of the power tools are actually over-engineered 10 years ago. They have too much power. You could have built a whole house with a drilling machine, but people just want to hang up the picture. So the idea was actually to reduce. Somebody said very, very well, simplify design. Yes, simplify the design and make it useful again. And get away with technology and talk about the use of the machine. And this is what the new customer segment looks like. It's not female. It's the IKEA generation. It's you, actually. Because you're not into this heavy-duty stuff anymore, but you still have a lot of tasks, unsolved tasks. And particularly, it's putting together your cupboard you just bought from IKEA, or when you move. It's little things you need, little helpers. And actually, they came up with this, and a lot of people had it on the screen, actually, I saw. It's the IXO. It's the first time they gave a brand, a product, a brand name called IXO. And they did not follow the classical mantra of making it faster, better than before. Then they said, let's make a machine which is much more useful. And then they figured out it can be very small, because most of the time a screwdriver, you don't need a big tool. It has to be handy, it has to be there when you need it. And the biggest innovation actually, and there you see the difference in positioning. Before 2002, that's on the left side, everything was engineering driven. It was technology orientation. They talked about like how many centimeters of concrete you could drill a hole into. While most people just do a hole of this. They were talking about 15, 20 centimeters. They were talking about watt, you know, how much power they have. And they were focusing on building and repair. That was their main market segment. And they had a very reliable, very powerful, and long-living products. But they were extremely unemotional. You see the package material here, the yellow stuff? It's very uninspiring. All technical details, like how many watt it has, etc., is on there. And it's pretty much like the PC world versus the Apple world. While PCs is all about what kind of processors you have in there, how much gigabytes RAM you have in there. When I buy my Air computer, I don't care. It has to work for presentations, and it's much better than anything I had before. I don't care for my processor, which is in here, in this computer. Actually, it's a pretty old one, because an old one takes less power. And for Apple, it's more important that a computer runs for 8 hours than I can crunch numbers I never crunch. So this is pretty much what Bosch did as well. Instead of technology orientation, they went to user and usage orientation. Some teams had it. You talked about it. The first team talked about simplified design. And you see, innovation can be just doing the opposite of what the market says. And the market was man. And man loved big machines. But why do you accept this? You don't have to accept it, because I mean, man make up only, and even man who doing do-it-yourself heavy-duty stuff is probably only 5 to 10% of the population. So you miss 90% of the market. So are the 90% stupid, or are they extremely clever because they think they're too bulky, too heavy? And suddenly they were doing it differently. Suddenly people were buying the stuff when they started with user and usage orientation, usability. And everything actually changed also in the direction of inspiring people. And it's interesting when you look at the traditional market and you say, oh, they're men, they love big machines. That sounds very positive. If you take a picture like this here, you suddenly think, yeah, but this is only 2% of a man's population looks like this. And actually, Bosch changed the name of the traditional market to the term MMS, man, muscle, and sweat. Because that means immediately you have an impression how this customer segment looks like. And you see immediately there are hundreds or 10 times more people like her who just need a little bit of support with a power tool. And this was the IXO addressing totally new market. And you call that a niche market. Actually, it's a much larger market nowadays. And that is why I'm very skeptical about classical market research. Because a classical market research just shows you what is in the market today, and you can't create the market. That's the reason why he says you have to discover your market. Because most of the time, there's a larger market which is untapped than the classical market. For example, great exercise here would be, why do beer drinkers drink beer and not wine? Any idea why beer drinkers, what's so difficult about a wine? What's the biggest challenge in wine drinking?
Culture.
What do you mean by culture?
That it has, you just drink it from the bottle.
Okay. Ease of use is not that high, actually, yes. But it's actually also culture of, yeah. Any other thing? Who likes to buy wine? So how do you usually decide which bottle you buy?
According to the type of grape and the country.
Grape and country, you're already very advanced because most people say the country first or the area, but the grape is much more important, yes? But is it really easy to decide which wine is better than the other? It's rather... Yes, you need a lot of time to choose the right wine because actually when you do market research, most people take the price as a signal of the quality. So first you go into for the grape and the country and then, okay, this is a little bit cheaper, this is a little bit better, middle price, okay, go for the middle price because usually it's something you can't make wrong there. Like in Asia, if you're not trained to wine, you always buy or Russia. Who's from Russia here? Good, because the rich guys there, the businessmen, they love to buy the most expensive wine because they have no idea actually what it's all about. But price is a great signal that this must be a great wine. So when you take this in account that buying wine is difficult, how would you set up a wine company to make life easier? Because I think beer has one great advantage. You always know what you get. And in wine, it's very difficult to say what you get. Any idea? How would you build a brand for beer drinkers? A wine brand for beer drinkers. Any idea how you would do this?
What kind of grape should we use?
Exactly. Do you start with the grapes? Anything else? Do you have vintage, the year on the bottles? Because that is another hassle. You have to know the grapes, the year, and was it good in Bordeaux last year? Or was it a rainy year, which was very sour? So what would you do?
Maybe trying to keep the same quality.
Yeah, make a cuvée.
So people
You mix
can
it.
know that actually,
And you're from France, right?
yeah.
How does it sound that you have no vintage on the bottles anymore?
The thing is, in France, it's quite I'd say it's actually a big issue in France.
Yeah.
So they say that in France we have very chateau and assembling people are specialized in commercializing kind of wine, and it's started to be very complicated for everybody.
It's
Even
ve-
professional.
Yes, and it's interesting. A friend of mine, he's master of wine, and he went for a wine tasting in France. And what they did in the end, they took very expensive wines and poured them together. And he said some of them were much better, because if there's too much acid in there, you can have a little bit of this one in there. So it's not that bad actually to have like no years anymore, because in Champagne actually you have no years, and they always should taste the same. And everybody accepted there. Do you think there's a wine company which has just the bottles being separated by grapes? Then you have no vintage on it? Do you think, and every bottle explains extremely easy what this wine is good for, what kind of food? Do you think there's a company?
From the US. From the United States, actually, it's like this kind of marketing.
It's an Australian firm. It's called Yellowtail. And Yellowtail said, we want to address the American market with simple wines. They have 14 different wines, from a very light Riesling to a Syrah, which is very dark. And they tell you exactly what wine is good for what food. So all beer drinkers feel very happy because they know exactly you can never do something wrong. And in wine tasting, usually they score pretty high. Not, of course, the best, but they go pretty well. So what's the reaction of wine drinkers to this kind of wine? Ooh. Because it contradicts what the classical wine drinker thinks about what wine is all about. But there's the rest of the world which is called beer drinkers, and they love it because it makes life suddenly easy, and they know exactly, oh, this wine is perfect for chicken. Or if you have a nice tender beef, you go for a different wine. Or if you have oysters, you go for light white wine. So addressing non-customers can be a huge innovation in the market, and particularly being hated by the old traditional customers can be great. Because then you know exactly that you hit a position which people either like or dislike. If everybody does not like you, or everybody is kind of, oh yes, it's a nice idea, then it will be difficult probably. Because, I mean, nice is just, okay. While this yellowtail, people really love the wine because it opened up their choice for new drinks. And it's interesting when they start drinking them, then of course they try to educate themselves more about wine. It's now the biggest wine in America. You don't have to like it, but they have a great position about it. And this is pretty much like what also this little IXO did. When the IXO was introduced, the traditional market segment, they tested it. They didn't like it because they thought, sorry for the word, they thought it was very gay. You know, small. Who in the world wants to be seen with this kind of little device? I mean, I'm a man. I don't want to have this little device. But what happened later on was they figured out this is really great to use. And now all professional crafts have this, but of course in a blue version, because they would never be seen with a green version, which is for consumers. They have a blue version out of it. They use it everywhere. And it's interesting where you store your power tools. In the past, the power tools were in the cellar. You used it only once a year, twice a year. Now you have it in the kitchen drawer. And this device is the most sold device ever in power tools, 10 million times. I think now there are 12, 13, 15 million. And it's interesting, they discovered a whole new market. Who has an IXO here from you? Anybody has an IXO? Good. Next time you move, you should ask a friend to give you this IXO as a gift. Because this is now one of the most, actually, the customer segment is a gift market. It became a gift market. Because if somebody moves and he has a lot of IKEA furniture, the best present you can give him is this little machine. Because it will save him hours of this. So 50% nowadays of the IXOs being sold as gifts to somebody else. And they discovered totally new market segments. For example, Shell, they have a point collection system, or coupon system. If you have collected or you filled up so many times gas with Shell, you get a gift. This is the IXO. And you can have this kind of gift only with a great brand. Who would dare just to give some friend a Chinese machine for his birthday? Now, gifts have to be with a great brand. So the Chinese could not enter the market. This is what happened. Market share actually did not, for the established brands, still declined. So the others still haven't found a solution. But Bosch is the uncontested leader now with almost 40% market share. Actually, from 30 most sold machines or tools in Europe, I think from 30, 28 are from Bosch nowadays, because they took this approach from engineering design to usage for all brands, for all tools. And what is very important, to have a very strong differentiation. And you remember the slide yesterday I had with position. Innovation is all about having a position which makes you different, where you have a clear position versus current solutions. And what helps you a lot is called the strategy canvas. And you put, on the bottom, you put the factors you think are decisive in competition. And what is interesting, Bosch added here new things the guys have never thought about, like ease of use, inspiring people, home decoration, and women and do-it-yourself. And this helps you kind of to make your position clear how you want to position yourself versus the others. Because the business model to fill in is one part, but then have some uniqueness in your business model is the other part. And now I want to come to the idea of that there are two kinds of innovation. And you have to master actually both when you're in corporations, but also if you're a startup, you have to see what kind of innovation you do. Actually, all the innovation at Bosch started with something everybody else had also available. It was a new battery technology called lithium-ion. And the advantage was clear for everybody. Where's the Austrian guy I talked to yesterday? You see what I mean by like the idiosyncrasies of technology, because the technology was available for everybody, but then it was interesting to look what can this technology do to you. And lithium-ion has, for example, the advantage you can press them in any shape. So it can do a lot of strange things with the battery. In the past, the battery had to be always a pack. Now it can have different shapes. It's lighter than others, and it does not have a memory effect. And particularly, it does not self-discharge. Because with the old technology, you could have never built a tool for the kitchen, because the worst thing what happened is you take it out of the kitchen drawer after 3 months and it's empty. So lithium-ion just made it possible that you could do the IXO. But then the classical approach is you take the technology and do what your current customers love. So if you ask man, muscle, sweat, they say, I want to have a big, big screwdriver. And of course, they got it. And this is like what everybody else did it in the market as well. But interesting was Bosch said, like, no, we can address with this new technology, we can exactly address people who like usability, ease of use, vibrational stuff like this. And this is what disruptive innovation is about, finding new markets which actually don't like that much. They're not as demanding. They don't like the traditional position that much because they think it's over-engineered. So it's actually a low-end market, because in the classical definition, having a small driller in the kitchen cupboard is a low-end market, because they don't have a real, a big wall to drill a hole into. So disruptive innovation is not something technologically difficult. It's more about disruptive behavior, because your customers are different, they behave differently. And sustaining is all about your serving your current customers. And it's very important. I like the group here because you did very much like what you've learned in school and in your university. Oh, costs are too high, let's go to low-cost countries. Actually, Bosch moved back their production from Asia to Europe. Can you imagine why? Why did they move the production back to Europe? No, actually, quality is great. I think there's no other place to produce an iPad than in China nowadays.
Probably made in Germany?
No, it's Hungary nowadays. It's faster to market. We overestimate cost of production. We underestimate the time it needs to be in the market. In particular, when you moved away from the markets, let's say in the classical retail channels, and you have suddenly like marketing departments of Shell who becomes your customers. Who works in the marketing department? Marketing people always have an idea and they want to execute it now. So they want to have, if they want to have the Bosch IXO as an incentive, they want to have it 6 weeks later, they want to have it in the gas stations. That doesn't work if you produce in China. It works if you have it in Hungary and the package material comes somewhere else. They're now so flexible to fulfill the needs. Some of you saw the wine, the IXO wine. Somebody had this strange IXO with the screwdriver on top. Somebody had it on the screen. They came up with the Christmas version, which is the IXO with a screwdriver on top. I mean, bad idea, sounds like it. They sold in a week 300,000 of these. Because nobody needs it, but it's a great gadget to give as a present for Christmas. Because gift markets and present markets works totally different. And suddenly they moved away from the traditional man, muscle, sweat to a totally different market. And now they are actually a marketing-driven firm. And actually, they had no idea that this market existed. They discovered it over 10 years. And I tried to write a research paper about their process. I interviewed 3 days, all top management. And to be honest, they have no idea how they made it. Well, that's the reason why there's no case study. Because you can't say, yes, we did a lot of good things. And the first good thing they did was they hired women. So they hired a woman in their engineering department. And she designed the first IXO was pink. And they still have it and say like, you know, we were so stupid. We always thought women are kind of limited to colors. But then we figured out there's a much bigger use for ease of use machinery. But now nobody can really explain how this happened. Now, of course, they have everything, customer tests, customer development, everything set in place. But how this happened, 10 years after that, there's almost nobody who can remember exactly how it worked. There's a totally mind shift in the head of Bosch. That's so difficult to copy because the head, you have so many tacit. Who knows the word tacit, or who does not know what the word tacit is? You know it, it's tacite in French. It's unspoken. You have so many unspoken rules in your head, how you think the world works. This is why it's so difficult to change certain business models, because what you see on the surface of the canvas is just the surface. But inside of Bosch, there's so much know-how nowadays about the use of these little devices, about the market for Christmas present. I mean, Metabo or the Chinese have no idea how the German or the European Christmas market works. They might get the know-how in 2-3 years, but this is so tacit, so unspoken rules, it's pretty difficult to copy. But also, your head is very good in creativity, but also the biggest impediment to change. And this is the reason why we go for the second part after a break. I call it business model innovation, killing your competitor softly. Because you don't attack him actually, you just do something differently, and in the beginning they even think, you're so stupid. Can you imagine? You're the manager of Bosch, and you say like, you know, I sell to women. So the first reaction of market research would be, women don't buy power tools. Yeah, how? You're stupid. You have no idea what the market's all about. And you say, okay, I still believe it. Because entrepreneurship is all about not looking at existing markets, but shaping markets. And that also means go for new niche markets, which in the end might be pretty big. Thank you very much, and let's have a coffee break for, let's say, 15 minutes, 15 past 11, and then we're back here.